Let's talk about disordered eating. So whether you have a diagnosed eating disorder, something that you think you might have, or you just generally feel like your eating habits aren't great, you regularly either restrict, binge, some form of relationship with food that you find is unhealthy, you struggle to stick to a set nutrition plan, anything like that, then this video is for you. So these things take time to overcome, and the most important thing is learning why it's happening. Usually, let's talk about someone who regularly goes off track or binge eats or doesn't have much control around the food. So this isn't based on if you're hungry. This is something that's happening when you're not hungry. So we need to look at the reasons why it's happening. A lot of the time it is to make up for some other emotion that's going on. So you could be feeling sad, lonely, stressed, and anything, any sort of different emotion other than just generally feeling pretty relaxed and happy can trigger emotional eating, some sort of binge and restrict cycle, things like that. It is usually trying to compensate for these feelings. So generally being more self-aware and knowing why it's happening and actually reflecting on your feeling. When you get the thoughts of, oh, I want to binge eat, or you have just binged it, or you've just gone a lot off track, not necessarily a binge, something that you could still be in control, you just want to eat a load of chocolate, or you don't want your healthy tea that you've made, you want like a pizza or a McDonald's, anything like that. A lot of the time it can be to compensate for an emotion that you're having. So it's ideal to think about in what other ways can you get this comfort rather than resorting to food. So depending on why you find that you do it, your outcome and well, what you do in order to help this and find another way to deal with these emotions is going to vary from person to person. But things like going out on a walk and just generally being able to reflect on your state of mind, to get some fresh air, just really like think about what's going on in your head, why you're feeling a certain way, what emotions you're actually feeling, and that can be very helpful. Things like if you just generally want something to eat, you want some sort of satiety, can never say that properly. Having a hot drink can sometimes help, like a cup of tea, a hot chocolate. You can get a low calorie ones at around 40 calories, so it's not breaking your macros. A cup of coffee. A lot of this does help people to relax, but generally sitting there and having something going in your mouth that's taken a while to consume does give that sort of satiety that eating can. Sometimes it can produce a boredom eating, so it is a case of distracting yourself in a way, keeping yourself occupied with something that you enjoy, read a book, listen to music, go out, walk, whatever you find interesting and stops you just sitting on the sofa watching TV and wanting to grab bags of chocolate. And then if you do find it that you're really stressed, things like yoga, meditation, having a hot bath, stuff like that can really help. These are things that I tend to chat to clients about quite a lot, and they'll implement various changes in habits in order to help with deal with their emotions and their overeating, or just generally going off track, things like that. And I'll get people that will say like, "Oh, I'm feeling a lot better. I figured out why I'm just stressed with work. This is why it's happening. So I've started going on an evening walk, and it's really making a difference." But then a week later, they'll have a bit of like a relapse, and they'll have a binge again, or they'll just go off track. But what they don't seem to look at is the bigger picture of this used to happen maybe every 2 or 3 weeks. Now it's happening maybe every 2 or 3 months. That is all progress. Or there'll be some people who they have an off day, maybe like, oh, I've done it again, like I'm not sticking to my plan, I'm really struggling. But that used to be an off week. Like they let it happen for multiple days or even a week at a time. They'd send their weekly log and be like, I just didn't log this week, I didn't, such a thing happened. Whereas now they're like, oh, I didn't log this day because such a thing happened. So that is all progress. Just generally being more self-aware and knowing why things are happening is progress. Even if you're not actually improving how often it happens or how much like you overeat by or so on, if you're actually more aware of why it's happening, then you are going to be able to tackle it over time. It does take time. But people don't look at the bigger picture of this is all progress. Progress isn't the number on the scales going down, because anyone can lose weight. You can starve yourself, you can restrict your calories hugely for a few weeks because you can have the willpower to stick to that, but that isn't a long-term solution, and that's going to cause more relapses and so on. That isn't progress. But because you've seen the number on the scales go down, you're thinking it is. But actually generally being in a healthy state of mind, understanding your body, understanding what's emotions affect certain things is progress, because this is going to give the long-term sustainable results that you actually want. But also saying all of this, sometimes people have a day off track because they want to. It isn't anything emotional. It isn't they feel they need to binge. They just, not everyone wants to stick to a strict routine all the time, which is absolutely fine. Sometimes some people will do this and they don't sort of overeat, they just don't track, and it don't affect the progress at all. Some people will typically go over the calories quite a bit, which again is fine because it's something that's controlled, we've planned it in. Like, it's important to enjoy life, and you do want the odd day where you don't track and you just have what you want. You go out for a meal, you're not on MyFitnessPal, that's absolutely fine, but it is something that you usually need to factor into your diet, or it will start to hold back your progress. If this is happening every weekend, then we're going to be quite limited with the progress that we can make. But if it's once a month, or it's like it's a special occasion or so on, then that is all absolutely fine, and that isn't a sort of disordered eating. It doesn't need to be named as a binge or anything like that. I will have some clients who are like, oh, I binged today, and they'll track the calories on the binge, but it'll be a few hundred more than what is their goal, which isn't a binge. So I feel like a lot of the mind frame around how you see your own eating can have a big effect as well. So just generally thinking about just being more self-aware, understanding your body and your mind frame is one of the keys to cracking any sort of eating disorder or disordered eating, or any habit that you feel that you have is an unhealthy habit and you want to try and tackle. Then these sort of steps are something that would be ideal to implement, think about and understand.